Sports Cavalcade.
Oh, rapid roar that stock car boy, he too much to believe. You know he always got an extra bike.
Today from Daytona Beach, Florida, the very birthplace of NASCAR, we travel north to Dover, Delaware, and the Dover Downs International Speedway to bring you the NASCAR North 200. The exciting thing about this race is that for most of these drivers, it's the first time they've competed on a super speedway. These men normally run on smaller ovals of 1/4 to 1/3 of a mile. But here they're running on what they call the Monster Mile. We expect they'll be traveling at twice their usual speed, so there's no telling how things may turn out. During the race, I'll take some time to explain a little bit about sportsman racing and the history of NASCAR North, which has become one of the most successful short-track race tours in the world. But right now, I'm ready for racing. And here to call all the action are my buddies Steve Evans and Brock Yates. Brock?
Is this your basic automobile racing plant? Not hardly. This is Dover Downs, Delaware, a horse track most of the year, but on other occasions, the place where the big super speedway cars run on a dual facility inside a half-mile horse track and what is called the Monster Mile, a high-bank super speedway. Today, we bring you the NASCAR North 200, a unique event unto itself because we're going to produce competition between a group of guys that don't normally run on big speedways. French Canadians and New Englanders who run on short tracks, and they're going to bring into this racetrack some unique automobiles, and they're going to run very hard for the first time at speeds that are not usually used to running at. To get a look at the automobiles that these guys will be running, I'd like you to meet my broadcast associate and old pal, Steve Evans.
Thank you, Brock. First of all, let's get stock out of the way. The only thing stock about these automobiles is the basic body sheet metal and the engine block that resides under the hood. The prime visual difference between the NASCAR North cars and the Grand National machines most of us are familiar with are the fender wells. They're cut away to make room for these big, wide, fat tires. Because on the short tracks where these guys normally race, these tires really act like bumpers because they do a lot of pushing and shoving of one another. Well, basically, that's what we're dealing with here today. A little different breed of NASCAR machine whose drivers are in for a big surprise when they see what lies inside the Monster Mile.
No question about that, Steve. You could say that they've just about doubled everything. They're going to run at twice the speed, twice the distance, and certainly they're going to be involved with about twice the danger. But this all involves a certain amount of apprehension on the part of a whole bunch of new drivers here at Dover Downs. Now, the NASCAR North Circuit generally runs half miles, third miles, that sort of thing. Was it a big mental adjustment to come down and run a big speedway like this?
Well, everybody was really looking forward to coming down and running a speedway like this, but truthfully, it is quite a transition. I can't say that I'm really comfortable out there yet. I'm sure as the race goes on, I can start adjusting to the speeds and the banking, but it's a lot of fun. It's a real nice track, and right now we haven't really had too many problems.
Some guys told me it's not the track for the car run in the NASCAR North, but I take a chance and I come in.
How does it feel when you get up on that high 28-degree bank?
For the first lap, I feel very funny. Very funny.
Your Grand National experience will probably help you a little bit in a long-distance race like this, don't you think?
Yes, I would say it's possible that I have an advantage over them. Of course, like I say, I never have ran at Dover, but I have ran at Rockingham, which is slightly the same. They're both high-bank mile racetracks. But we're still working on the chassis. If I don't get that right, all the experience in the world won't do me any good, but we're getting closer anyway.
What do you do mentally and physically to get John ready?
Psych myself up. That's about all I can tell you. I don't know. It's the first time I've ever done this, and it's an experience. It's different. It's a thrill. I know that.
He may be tense, and I guess everybody else is, but it sure didn't show in Bobby Dragon winning the pole. He ran 135 miles an hour around Dover, which is only 4 miles an hour off the absolute track record. Not bad for a beginner.
Brock, on the outside of the front row will be the 07 car of Randy LaJoie from South Norwalk, Connecticut. His crew had a busy morning. They discovered some engine damage from qualifying, had to put in a fresh power plant.
And in the number 3 position, in the number 0 Buick, Dick McCabe, they call him the Irish Angel from Kennebunkport, Maine. He's a 2-time winner of the NASCAR North Tour, the defending champion.
Fourth fastest in the field is the 5A car of John Paul Cabana from Quebec, Canada, the 2-time Canadian driving champion. Now, Cabana has a little NASCAR experience, has even driven at Daytona on one occasion.
And with even more experience, Steve, is Chuck Bound in the number 7 Pontiac. He is a veteran of Grand National competition, driven on speedways like Dover, and is the only Westerner in the field from Portland, Oregon.
Professional driver Dave Dion is in car number 29. Dion has dabbled in Grand National racing, including an appearance at Rockingham, and hails from Hudson, New Hampshire. His brother Paul and Roger make a go of this operation on very few dollars.
And in the number 7 starting position is Claude Leclerc in a Pontiac. He is one of a number of semi-pros in the field, Steve. He runs an auto repair shop in Montreal when he's not racing.
The number 34 Pontiac, Brock, is Stephen Poland from North Troy, Vermont. He's in the wholesale lumber business, has won only 1 race this year, but has finished in the top 10 13 times. Very consistent driver.
And starting in the 9th spot, Wesley Rosner from Agawam, Maine, who's in the race car building business with his father when he's not actually driving the cars.
Number 3, Johnny Tripp, rounds out the top 10. Not much I can tell you about Johnny. He's new to the circuit and delighted to have qualified number 10. He was so excited you'd have thought he was on the pole. And excitement is the key word for all 21 of these drivers and their crews. There's 21 other people who are getting ready to go to work too in a different way.
I think we tend to look at racing as a combination of car and driver, but there's a great deal more to that. As we see preparations starting for the NASCAR North 200, each one of the crews will have 5 members over the wall and during pit stops. But more than that, there's a group of people behind me that are also key components of each car. Each car must supply 1 scorer. It sits in this little grandstand. It keeps track of the automobiles as they circulate this 200 miles at Dover. And they're the people that will determine who finishes first, second, third, and so forth. If they don't keep track of their proper positions of their drivers, there's going to be a giant argument at the end. We'll hear all sorts of problems arise. So not only do we have people over the wall, in the car, but in the little grandstand to take care of each one of these automobiles. And it's a complicated process.
Well, Brock, I hope they got their pencil sharp, because the flashing light on the pace car indicates that we're about ready for the pace lap as all 21 qualifiers prepare to move out onto the circuit. And there's some nervous stomachs in this field.
No question, Steve, but, you know, I'm sure that every one of these guys has told himself that he's going to take it easy on the opening laps, and he's going to feel the race car out, feel the racetrack out, get familiar with things. But you got to know there's 1 or 2 guys that are going to go for it. They're going to go quickly. They're going to push the pace up, and that means everybody else is going to have to stand on it, keep up, and that's where the trouble may come.
Well, you consider that only 3 or 4 drivers have ever had any big-time NASCAR experience. Only 1 driver in this entire field has ever even seen this monster mile in his career.
Yeah, these high banks, big speeds are going to knock on 160 miles an hour down the straights. That's probably 60 miles an hour faster than they'll run on the half miles during most of their careers. So they're going to get into wind turbulence, drafting, wholly different racing techniques than they've been used to for most of their careers, actually.
Seems to be a lot of trust among these drivers, Brock. They all know each other well, and they're trusting that one another will do his job as professionally as possible, and more than anything else, stay out of trouble in the early going.
Yeah, I've been impressed with their attitude. They've come here with a very positive attitude. As you say, they know each other. They race against each other 30 or 40 times a season. So I don't think that any overt aggressiveness or problems are going to arise from bad driving. It's just a question of a totally new environment.
And, you know, for the professional drivers in the field, Brock, you might even consider this an audition, possibly, for an opportunity to go big-time Grand National racing. There's a lot of crew chiefs and even drivers here watching this race from the Grand National circuit.
No question, it's showtime, and we'll be back with the start in a minute.
This 21-car field of the NASCAR North 200 here at Dover, Delaware, is just now entering turn 4 on the pace lap. The starter looking over the field. He likes what he sees. We've got to start a green flag. Brock Yates.
It's a drag race to turn 1, Steve, and Bobby Dragon, the pole sitter, is going to win it. He's got the power. He qualified almost 2 miles an hour faster than LaJoie in second place, and he should lead the opening laps with ease.
Now, Dick McCabe has moved into the number 2 spot. That's the green car, number 0. And Chuck Bound with a great start. The number 7 car of Bound, the Pontiac, now running 3rd.
Nice clean start considering the inexperience of the field on this monster mile. So they're going to come around here. Dragon's going to lead the first lap, but everybody's still in the hunt.
Well, there was a lot of trepidation among the drivers, Brock, hoping to get cleanly through this first lap and the second lap. I think they're going to calm down now and get to some serious racing.
Let's not forget, too, Steve, that this is a relatively short race, 200 miles. They're only going to make one pit stop, so they're going to have to really stand on the gas for the whole distance. There's no chance to kind of stabilize in the middle of the race where you, in a 500-miler race of that distance, you can kind of ease off and pace yourself through the middle parts, but they're going to have to go all the way very hard.
And a lot of these drivers right now are experiencing, Brock, a strange phenomenon, that of the turbulence of drafting on this high bank track.
Absolutely. Down the straights, this bunch of leaders are getting into a draft. They're going to be able to tow themselves along. And once they get used to that kind of turbulence and that kind of aerodynamic phenomenon on a big speedway like this, you'll see some passing. You'll see some guys use that draft to jump into the lead or jump past the car in front of them.
So far, there seems to be really only one groove around this racetrack. Stay low in the turns, drift out towards the wall, and down low again to set up for the next turn. Really no surprises so far among the leaders. Bobby Dragon, the #1 qualifier, is still leading this race, car number 71. We talked to Bobby Dragon earlier about how he plans to adapt from short track racing to the Monster Mile.
What's the biggest adjustment that you have to make as a driver to get on a high bank mile speedway like this?
Well, I think probably being able to get the car set up properly is the big question mark. We thought we'd talk to some of the Grand National drivers and maybe get a few suggestions from them as to how we should set the car up for the race, for qualifying and that type of thing. And we talked with Harry Gant, Terry Labounty, and they all pretty much said the same thing. You got to start the car out with a push here on this track, or you just won't be able to drive it very long. And we got the car loose here yesterday, and I have to agree with them. I was worn out in about 7 or 8 laps, so we're going with their suggestions.
No question about it. It's going to be a physically demanding day for drivers who aren't used to this kind of strain.
And here's a change for second place, Steve. There goes Chuck Bound in the #7 Pontiac, that green car, getting underneath Dick McCabe in the #0 Buick for second place. You notice McCabe just got a little wide in turn 4. Bound took advantage of it, and he's passed.
And look at this battle for 5th position. On the outside, car number 29, Dave Dion, trying to outmuscle the Canadian car number 5, John Paul Cabana. He has done it. Dion now moves into 5th position, just behind the red car number 07, Randy LaJoie.
A significant pass, Steve, because Dion drove right around Cabana on the outside. That implies that that car is handling very, very well. He could be a factor as the race proceeds.
And it looks like McCabe in car number 0 has got some problems because Randy LaJoie now moves outside the red 07 to take over 3rd spot.
Something may be the matter with McCabe. It's unusual for a man like him. He's a charger. He likes to stay at the front, to fall this far back. I could see him maybe letting a couple of guys past and letting somebody else maintain the pace early in the race, but to fall this far back implies something's the matter.
Well, Dave Dion in car number 29 will be the next driver to take a shot at McCabe, and he's right on his bumper looking for that 4th position.
And here's the leader, Bobby Dragon, still well out in front. You heard him say that setting up the car was the key to running at Dover. The chassis is working for Dragon. It certainly isn't working for McCabe, or something else is the matter, and that's why he's falling back. All it takes is a little bit of a chassis adjustment to make a car right or wrong. And if you make the wrong choice at the beginning of the race, you could be in some problems.
Well, there are your leaders, 71, 7, and 07, the top 3 runners at this moment, followed by, in 4th, 5th, and 6th positions, McCabe number 0, followed by Dion 29, and 5A, Cabana.
Uh-oh, look at Dion. He's drifting up on this turn 4 wall, and Cabana jumps right underneath him and takes 4th position. That is a hazard of running here at Dover. Not necessarily get into the wall if you get wide, but once you get out of that groove, the short way around is down low, and as you saw there, Cabana just went right on past him.
And the leaders still, Bobby Dragon, car number 71, followed by 7, Chuck Bond, and 07, Randy LaJoie.
Bound seems to be running very confidently in second place. I don't know whether he's using all that car, or he's just hanging back on Dragon, but you know, there's experience with Bound that some of the other guys don't have on speedways of this type, so he could be maybe laying back a little bit at this point and letting Dragon set the pace. You know, Bobby Dragon told us earlier he was still not quite comfortable here, but you'd never know it watching him lead this race. No question, Bobby Dragon has got a nice, smooth running machine right now. I can't say the same thing about poor old Dick McCabe in that 0 green Buick. He's having some handling problems. There goes Cabana making a move on him, but McCabe will hold him off with superior horsepower down the front straight, but I think the car is handling badly. They probably made a bad chassis setup choice prior to the race. I'll bet that Dick is wishing right now he could get a yellow flag so he could jump into the pits. The crew could make some changes in the chassis setup and get his handling back. That is a disadvantage with a relatively short race like this. You only have one pit stop, unless you have a yellow, of course. So that means that you have to guess right at the beginning, or else you've got some problems going in. You're going to have to go the distance with a bad handling car. Add to that the fact that this is a totally new experience. There have got to be some questions about the driver.
Well, preparing the car is one thing. How do you prepare yourself for these kind of high bank turns? A totally different type of racing.
Well, yeah, I think you just got to be cautious. That's all. I mean, it's all new to all of us, so we're just going in there with an idea of trying to stay cool and see how it goes. We'll probably have a good race, you know, the last half of the race, but I think everybody's going to be pretty careful at the beginning.
Well, Dick's going to have to get things sorted out if he's going to get back up among the leaders, Steve.
And we're looking at the leaders right now. Car number 71 and Bobby Dragon, who has led this race since the green flag. But right on his bumper is Chuck Bound in car number 7. This is shaping up to be a wild afternoon.
And what a job these short trackers are doing. It looks like they've been on the super speedways all their lives.
There's still a long ways to go in this race, so you can't count out any of these front runners. And we'll be back with more from Dover, Delaware, and the NASCAR North 200 right after this.
In the South, the sportsman class cars must be at least 2 years old because the 2 current model years are reserved for the Grand National drivers. The teams from NASCAR North, however, are allowed to run the latest model cars because they seldom compete with Grand National drivers on the same weekend. There is one other big difference that really makes the sportsman class very competitive, and that's the weight of the cars. Sportsman class cars weigh at least a minimum of 2,900 pounds. The Grand National cars must weigh at least 3,700 pounds. So on a short track, the sportsman class cars can actually go faster than some of the Grand National drivers. So all this makes for some real exciting racing action. So let's go back to Brock and Steve for more.
Thanks, Ed. And you got to think about some of the great names that come out of sportsman racing, the Andrettis, the Waltrips, the Yarboroughs, and the list goes on. And there may be some future superstars here at Dover Downs in the NASCAR North 200.
And they're putting on a heck of a race today. Chuck Bound in the number 7 Pontiac, right on the bumper of race leader Bobby Dragon, car number 71. And behind them come Dick McCabe, John Paul Cabana, Dave Dion. Quite a race among the top 6 drivers so far.
Yeah, the interesting part about the event is that a lot of people thought maybe these guys were going to be all over the racetrack, pasted up against the retaining walls. Not one problem. Everybody is driven like pros. Nobody has been blocking anybody. Nobody has spun out. Just good, solid racing, Steve.
Now, Dick McCabe in number 0 may have 4th place right now, but there's 2 drivers trying to take it away from him. John Paul Cabana in 5A and number 29, Dave Dion. This is 4th, 5th, and 6th you're looking at right now.
You know, and Dick McCabe has been a little bit of a mystery in this race. He started out in 2nd, fell back to 4th. Now he's holding 4th. I've got to speculate that they set the car up a little bit loose. When the racetrack was green, he couldn't handle very well. Now that it's got some rubber down, he seems to be running more strongly, but he can't seem to catch up with these guys still.
Here's the duel up front that's been going on lap after lap. Number 71, Bobby Dragon, number 1. Chuck Bound right on his bumper, number 2. Bound starting to go outside, getting very aggressive. He's putting a move, and he is around Bobby Dragon.
Yeah, but can he hold it? Dragon's got the low line coming off of 4. Bound does hold it. You know, it's interesting, Steve. He wouldn't have tried that probably earlier in the race. They're gaining confidence, they're running harder, and they're doing a fine job on this monster mile.
I have to wonder if Chuck Vaughn hasn't been laying back there in 2nd place, not really wishing to get by Bobby Dragon, conserving his strength and that of his automobile.
Well, they're going to continue to test each other in these early stages of the race, Steve, but you know, you've got to believe that it's a big moment for Chuck Bound to even be at this place.
Well, yes, really it is, Brock. We've run this Skull Bandit race car that I have here today 30 times on quarter miles and third miles all over New England and Quebec. And it has run literally every weekend since the middle of April. And it's quite a credit to get it down here on this super speedway. And I'm really impressed. These guys are doing a super job. The cars are handling well and going fast. And it was tough just to get here. We run a 300 lapper just last Sunday at Milton, Vermont, Catamount Stadium. So, you know, it's a credit to have them here and running so well.
And a big surprise, too, Steve, because they're just doing a fine job running hard and staying away from the wall.
Chuck Bound still leading Bobby Dragon, and Brock, a very high average speed for this race with no yellow flags at all.
Yeah, over 130 miles an hour. That means that they're running probably about 160 down the end of the straights. These high banks will scrub off a lot of speed, so they'll probably come down to around 125 as they come off the corners. Quick burst of speed, so it gives them an average of about 130, 132, which isn't bad for a mile speedway.
Well, Bobby Dragon trying to get up on the bumper of Chuck Bound for a tow, but he doesn't appear to have the muscle to do that. You wonder if some of these drivers, Brock, wouldn't like a yellow flag if for no other reason than to rest their arms and take a deep breath.
No doubt about it. They're taking a lot of punishment. You get a lot of downward G-loadings in these high bank corners, and you're sawing on the wheel all the way around. About 70% of the racetrack is corners, so you just don't get much chance to rest.
Well, it was the varsity in this game, the Grand National drivers, who nicknamed this track the Monster Mile. And if it's that fatiguing to guys who do this for a living, who race all over the country, you can imagine the strain on the sportsman racers from northern New England and Quebec.
Well, that's true, Steve, although those short tracks can be mighty tough, too. They're bouncing and banging off each other for 100 miles, so they're working hard. They're used to working hard. The thing about Dover is that it's got a lot of bumps in it.
A battle going on for fourth position between number 0 McCabe and Cabana, the Canadian, in 5A. It is Cabana right on. Cabana comes down low. Can he make it stick? No. McCabe hanging on to fourth place. Cabana going to take another shot at him going into turn 1. But it's McCabe. He had enough horsepower to at least stay ahead for the moment.
Yeah, but you can see that just a little slip to the outside of the racetrack and somebody can slide underneath you. So you really have to stay low on this racetrack. Bound still holding a pretty solid lead over Bobby Dragon in second place. He's opening out a little bit, but that's hard to say. Dragon could be holding back. But at this moment, Bound, nice solid lead and plenty of open racetrack here. He's not going to get jammed up in traffic, and he should be able to stay out front for as long as Dragon is holding back. I don't know. It's hard to say. Maybe Bobby is just letting him set the pace for the time being.
Possibly putting the shoe on the other foot is Bobby Dragon. Now here is that race for fourth position. It is Dick McCabe trying to hold off John Paul Cabana. Cabana pulling up on his rear bumper. Cabana is going to go low. If he can just stay even with McCabe, he may make this work. Cabana has the shortest way around this racetrack now. McCabe is out of position. It is Cabana even with him. It is Cabana ahead of him and moving into fourth position.
Perfect pass. Got down low. Kept a wheel underneath McCabe as they went into turn 1 and held it coming back out of that corner down the back straight.
Cabana is known as a cagey driver in Canada. We talked to him about his strategy here at Dover.
You know, I start 4 in the race, but for me, you know, I try to run very slowly in the first 100 laps. I want to keep my car for the rest, but very important, that's the car he passes the checker flag.
So you might run easy and then a strong close. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I start easy, but I want to finish very hard.
Well, apparently he felt he had taken it easy enough, Brock, as he's making his move.
Yeah. He's nibbling away at these guys. There's Chuck Bound in the lead with Bobby Dragon right on his tail in second place.
In third spot, Randy LaJoie, car number 07, John Paul Cabana, who we just talked to. Number 5A car has moved up to fourth, followed by McCabe, who has dropped back since the early going. So has Dave Dion. And we'll be back with more NASCAR 200 action in Dover, Delaware, right after this.
Welcome back to Dover Downs, Delaware for the first ever running of the NASCAR North 200. I'm Brock Yates along with my pal Steve Evans, and we're hard at it. They're hard at it down on that 1 mile high bank speedway as Chuck Bound, the only Westerner in the race, leads Bobby Dragon of Vermont in a very tough battle so far.
Well, while Bound and Dragon play tag for the lead, Randy LaJoie is running in third place, pretty much all by himself, but ready to strike if anything should happen to these leaders.
A couple of interesting contrasts here. You know, Chuck Bound is a full-time professional, but Bobby Dragon is, when he's not racing, is an IBM repairman in Burlington, Vermont.
Well, that's the nice thing about this kind of racing. The way the rules are set up, a working guy can get out there and compete on an equal basis with a pro. There is some race going on for fourth position between John Paul Cabana. Actually, Cabana has moved out a bit now in the blue and white car 5A. Behind him to the right of your screen is the green machine of Dick McCabe and Dave Dion in the orange car.
Once Cabana shook himself loose from McCabe, he's opened up a pretty good lead. For a long time, he couldn't get around him, and he stuck back there, but now he's got some open track, and he may be catching the leaders.
The leader, Chuck Bound, is starting to get some real heat from Bobby Dragon, who led so many laps in the early going. Dragon, the red car, chasing the green and white machine of Chuck Bound, number 7. Now this is Dragon moving up. Dragon's got a good line here if he can get in low. Force him to the outside. Bobby Dragon pulls up alongside and may get around him coming out of turn number 1. He does. Bobby Dragon reclaims the lead.
Nice pass by Dragon. Ooh, got a little loose there. You see that? Down low in the groove, but the car got a little loose. I wonder, Dragon has looked a little loose in these stages, at this stage of the race. I wonder whether or not he's maybe a little bit over his head.
Well, you wonder also if Chuck Bound let him go by to settle back into second place as he did earlier, or if maybe he's having some problems.
Could be, Steve, but now we're heading toward one of the most dramatic moments in this race, the only pit stop. They're going to have to stop, they're going to have to put on fuel, and they're going to have to change tires. Now, let's not forget that they don't do this normally in their kind of racing. And we talked earlier to Bobby Dragon about how these crews have prepared for the stops.
Yeah, we have pit stop contests throughout the season up north, and surprisingly, these guys, what little experience we get during racing conditions, generally we run 100-lap shows, and so really pit stops don't come into play very much. But Tom has set up these pit stop contests. Probably we've had 8 or 10 of them through the season, and our guys are changing 2 right side tires and adding gas to cars in the vicinity of 25 seconds. So I don't see any problem as far as getting in and out of the pits quickly today.
The Tom Bobby Dragon referred to is Tom Curley, the director of the NASCAR North Circuit, and Tom is also helping us today with our telecast, and we thank him.
We sure do, Steve. And here's that battle for 4th place. Paul Cabana in the blue and white car with Dave Dion right on his tail as they go into turn 1. Cabana's been running well all afternoon, but Dion plugs along. He was back there in 6th, now making that move, just trying to get by on that outside, and maybe can he do it? Look at that, on the outside.
That's just raw horsepower, Brock. The line really belongs to Cabana.
Well, as we said earlier, it looks as if the line, yeah, he's passed. I think he's going to hold that lead. As I said earlier, I think the groove has moved up the racetrack. You notice everybody's running a little bit higher. All afternoon, that groove moves up and up. It may be that it's getting a little bit slick down low as the rubber gets laid down. So Dion found that outside groove and is taking advantage of it.
You know, one of the most famous tracks in the Northeast is called Thunder Road, and Dave Dion here has done so well there, he's been nicknamed King of the Road.
Maybe so at Thunder Road. That's a short track, but he's got a big job ahead of him here at Dover Downs, even though he's just gotten passed into 4th place. It's one of the only Fords in the field, and uh-oh, here's some trouble in the pits. This is the Pontiac, a Claude Leclerc car number 11. The hood is up. The crew is examining the engine. Steve Evans is with him to find out the trouble.
That's what happened, Claude.
The air filter bolt is broken and maybe drop on the cylinders and broken the piston.
Another one of those 50-cent parts cost you a race.
Yeah, 50 cents. It's the 3rd time this season.
Well, you bet they'll get to the bottom of this one before it costs them any more motors or any more races.
You can be sure that old Jean-Claude's going to have a talk with his hardware store operator. More trouble in the pits. Steve, what's the problem down there with car number 7?
All right, Chuck Bound is in the pits, Brock. This is an unscheduled pit stop. They are taking on right rubber. Vaughn apparently was having some problems on the racetrack that caused him to relinquish that lead to Dragon.
Big disappointment for Chuck Bound and his crew. He was in the lead, then fell back, makes his stop, definitely unscheduled. Maybe Steve Evans can find out what caused the trouble.
If we could get a word with Chuck Bound's crew real quick, what was happening there?
We lost the right rear tire. We blistered the right rear tire. I don't know.
So that's why he slowed down the last couple of laps?
Yeah, he did.
Okay, so just tires and fuel. That's too early a pit stop really to be helpful, though.
Yeah, that was bad.
All right, well, they're not encouraged about having to make that early a pit stop. Chuck Bound's crew.
And as Bound gets back up to speed, you've got to know that he's disappointed. He looked like he was a real runner in this contender in this race. And here comes Dion and Cabana putting a lap on him. So Bound falls back 1 full lap, 1 full mile in this race. And that's going to be a tough one to pick up as Bobby Dragon holds the lead. Randy LaJoy in 2nd in the 07 car. Dion and Cabana right there in third and fourth.
This is Ed Bruce back at Daytona Beach. Earlier I mentioned some of the differences between sportsman racing and Grand National racing. One other big difference has to do with getting to the race rather than the actual race itself. Now, I know you've all seen those big 18-wheeler rigs in the pits that the Grand National crews use to transport their cars from race to race. Those babies have room for 2 cars, extra engines, and jillions of spare parts. Well, now I'm going to show you how some of these sportsman racers get around. That's right, buses. They convert buses into rolling garages by taking out the seats and redesigning the rear doors so the cars can drive right inside. Now, there isn't nearly the amount of room in these buses as in the 18-wheelers, and they may not seem as glamorous as the big rigs, but they really do the job for these drivers and crews. You'd be surprised at how much equipment and spare parts these crews can jam into the buses. And considering the budget some of these men must work with, the buses are the perfect answer to storage and transportation problems on the NASCAR North Tour. Let's go back to Dover, where Bob Dragon in number 71 is really showing them how.
Thank you, Ed. This is Bobby Dragon in car number 71, who is currently leading the NASCAR North 200 here at Dover Downs in Dover, Delaware. Right behind Bobby Dragon comes Randy LaJoie, who has run a very consistent race in his number 07. Dave Dion, and then the Canadian John Paul Cabana. We're at the point where pit stops can start to play an important role here.
And here's another one for Chuck Bound. This is the second one, also unscheduled. More troubles. The hood is up. He's surely got some problems. So many times, one unscheduled pit stop will lead to a second one. It usually unleashes a chain of events. One problem, another problem, and more problems. Looks like the hood is down. Looks like Chuck Bound is out of the race. A good afternoon, yeah. He's waving him back into the pits, but that's the end of it for him. As our threesome, LaJoie, Dion, Cabana, continue to run hard in second through fourth place.
Well, in the early going, Randy LaJoie was running pretty much all by himself in third spot. With Bound out of the race now, LaJoie inherits that second position, but he's getting a lot of heat from 29, Dave Dion, and number 58, John Paul Cabana. This is quite a race for that second spot.
But the big benefactor in all these changes is our leader, Bobby Dragon, who's all alone in the lead, no problems. And his big rival, Chuck Bound, is in the pits. Steve Evans is with him.
So 3-time Western States NASCAR champion Chuck Bound still managing a smile. I really don't know how. Chuck, you're either leading this race or running a very close second, and what happened?
Well, I'm not really sure. All of a sudden, the liner equalized, and we come in and change the right sides, and doggone it if it wasn't the left side that it equalized. So we come back in and change the left side, but after running 3 full laps with an equalizer equalized on the left side, it knocked out the brakes in the car. The shaking must have broke a brake line or something. So now we're sitting here with no brakes, and the hydraulic clutch broke too, so there's no clutch. 4 laps down, so we're just going to call it a day.
Pretty philosophical on the part of Bound, but these guys hammer away. LaJoie, Dion, Cabana for the second, third, and fourth spots, while Dragon runs on alone. Good battle here. There he is, Dragon running alone, not even worrying about those guys. He's got a good solid lead, but here he comes into the pit, Steve. This is his first stop.
And it's a scheduled stop for Bobby Dragon, Brock. Number 71 is in for fuel primarily, feeling that he dare not take the chance of running out in the course somewhere.
Yeah, it looks like they're gonna run the jacks up and maybe change the right side tires. These guys, as we said before, are not practicing these pit stops. This is under the green. And in the meantime, this trio runs away from them, putting some big distance on them. So, but let's not forget, too, that they're going to have to stop for fuel and tires as well.
Well, number 29, Dave Dion, trying to make a move on Randy LaJoie. LaJoie inherited the lead when in the pits when Bobby Dragon. I believe Dion has the lead now.
Yeah, Dion has just scrambled all day. He was back there in 5th, 6th, slowly up to 4th, now 3rd. Now he's got the lead.
All right, with full tanks and new tires on the right side, Bobby Dragon's car comes down off the jacks and thunders back out onto the pavement, but he will have fallen back to the 4th position behind LaJoie and Dion and Cabana.
And now LaJoie jumps past the other two, takes the lead, but it looks like Dion is making a stop. Yes, Here comes Dave Dion in for his scheduled stop.
What these drivers lack in pit experience, they may make up for in numbers. There's no shortage of crew people. As Dave Dion thunders into his pit, his brother Paul and Roger overseeing the act, very well coordinated. As the windshield gets clean, Jack's going under the right side for new rubber. The tank's being filled. May not be the Woods brothers, but it is not bad.
Not bad considering the competition. And everybody else on the racetrack is going to have to make a stop too. These cars will run right on 100 miles, Steve. They carry 22-gallon tanks. They get between 4 and 5 miles to the gallon, so they're gonna have to stop. That's LaJoie and Cabana, but they can't go much farther without a stop as well, and that's going to jumble the order once more and give everybody that made their stops, Dragon and Dion, a chance to get back into the lead.
Randy LaJoie and John Paul Cabana running literally bumper to bumper in the number 1 and number 2 spots. Car number 71, Bobby Dragon, has now fallen back to 4th due to his pit stops. And in the pits with his crew chief, Frank Woodward, is Brock Yates.
What kind of fuel mileage were you getting on the first stop? Well, I think we could have gone an extra 25 laps. We'd have known, but, you know, we were just being safe. How's the car running? Seems to be running pretty consistent. You know, we stayed the same speeds.
No chassis changes on that stop?
Not on that stop, no. Just quiet. Nice.
Well, regardless of the outcome, Bobby Dragon is going to be disappointed when Frank tells him he could have gone another 25 laps. But out running hard, trying to make up the ground he lost, is number 71. 07 and 5A. This is Randy LaJoie and John Paul Cabana, and this is the race for the lead. And look at Cabana coming down under LaJoie.
Just going for it. Cabana, he just won't quit, but, you know, he's got to stop. These people have got to stop. They've gone probably 5 or 6 laps beyond what anybody would have expected them to go, but they've just got the bit in their teeth and they don't want to quit.
Well, these are two very evenly matched automobiles. Even though he's got the low groove, however, John Paul Cabana doesn't seem to be able to use it to his advantage, or can he?
Well, LaJoie hangs up there pretty high. He runs a lot higher than Cabana's been running, and old Jean Paul now seems to be able to get a little advantage, but don't give up.
Cabana is leading the race for the first time today over Randy LaJoie. And back in Cabana's pit, the sign comes out to bring that car in for necessary fuel and tires. So we will probably be seeing John Paul Cabana come in on the next lap.
Maybe yes, maybe no. Jean Paul seems to be very happy out there in the lead, and I don't know whether he's going to come in or not.
He hasn't led a race in a while. He's going to enjoy it while he can.
Absolutely.
And putting a few car links on Randy LaJoie. So Jean Paul Cabana, one of Canada's most popular drivers ever, and again he rejects the pit sign. Cabana, he's just having a good time.
He may be having a good time, but his crew certainly isn't. But there may be a method to his madness, Steve. He's running light, his fuel load is light, the car's handling very well. Don't forget, Dion and Dragon are running with full tanks. They're not running as quickly. He may want to get a little bit bigger lead on before he makes his stop. And on it goes, the John Paul Cabana economy run in the middle of the NASCAR North 200 at Dover, Delaware. On he goes. Pit crew keeps trying to get him to stop. He holds the lead. Jean Paul just won't quit. Interesting, because he may be gaining some advantage at this point, but let's not forget that when he stops, it's going to take all the more time to refill the fuel tank and to rechange the tires. So whatever advantage he builds up at this point, he may very well lose when he does finally make the stop. And he's going to have to stop, and when he does, Steve Evans is going to be there. What's happening down there, Steve?
Well, John Paul Cabana's crew has quit even giving him the pit sign. Apparently he has decided to change their strategy. They're getting possibly better fuel economy and better tire wear than they expected. John Paul in the cockpit can tell whether those tires are still sticking or not. Bob Dragon's crew were a little sorry that maybe they pitted. It was their scheduled stop, but they're getting better fuel economy than they thought they would.
Steve, it looks like they're going to try one more time to flag him down, but Jean Paul is going to have it his own way and will apparently stop when he feels like it and not according to the orders of his crew chief.
Randy LaJoie is currently running in the number 2 spot in the 07 car. Here's Randy, but he has not pitted either, just like Cabana. So both of these gentlemen are sooner or later going to have to get into the pits for tires and for fuel. Cabana continues to circle around in the lead with LaJoie a car length or 2 behind him.
And here he comes. Jean Paul Cabana finally makes his stop, comes into the pits. Is he running on fumes? Hard to say at this point. but he's rolling into the pits. Here he comes to a stop. Ah, the engine's running, so that means he still had a little bit left at least. In goes the fuel. There's a lot of spillage on that stop. And here comes LaJoy. When he passes the start-finish line, he takes the lead. There he goes. He's now the new leader. First time today. And there goes Cabana. No tire change, which is interesting. So he may have picked up a good advantage with that stop. As I thought, some problems with the Cabana crew. They did spill a lot of fuel, and one of the crewmen has picked up a lot of gasoline, and that's high-octane aviation type fuel. Very, very volatile, a lot of pain, a lot of water. In the meantime, Steve is with Patrick Kosowski, Cabana's crew chief.
Your crew is getting very nervous. John Paul, he'd not want to come in the pits.
Yeah, I know. I think he's lost track of exactly how many laps he can run without fueling up. We calculated we can go 110 laps without fueling up. And we're already at that point. We've only got 7 gallons in the car, and he needs another 7 or 8 gallons. So we may have to pull him back in within a couple laps to put in the last tank.
Did you say he not want to stop, Steve? You're starting to pick up a little of the local dialect, really getting into the program down there in the pits. In the meantime, here comes Randy LaJoy holding down the lead. Not much competition out there, although he's not running as quickly as you might expect. And here comes Cabana making a move on him already. And now we've got Dave Dion, number 29, that orange car with a black hood, running second. He's been with the leaders all day and getting stronger all the time.
Now, Dion has pitted, Brock, so he'll inherit the lead when Randy LaJoy comes into the pits, which he must do. Right in front of me here in the pit area is Dick McCabe, the 2-time NASCAR North champion and current champion, the green car 0. They're going to take on fuel and tires on the right side. The tank holds 22 gallons. There are 2 11-gallon fuel cans. The first one went in nicely. Second one going in now. McCabe having a chance to talk to his crew, communicate maybe some of the problems we felt he was having. And yes, indeed, they are changing the chassis setup here, jacking weight into the car to try to make it behave a little better out on the racetrack. He had plenty of power, but handling was definitely a problem for Dick McCabe. Quite a good stop, considering again that these are not really professional crews, as you would see in Grand National racing. So the tires are on the car, and Brock Yates can look at the tires that came off. He's in the pits now.
This is one of the tires that just came off Dick McCabe's leading automobile. It's an interesting piece in that it isn't a brand new tire. The Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company has supplied tires for many years to Grand National stock cars. And these tires are, in fact, Grand National tires, but they're not new. They're what are called scuffs. They're tires that have been used in qualifying. They're slightly worn. And when the Grand National cars used them just one time, the NASCAR North fellows came down here. These tires are built for super speedways. The NASCAR North cars run on short tracks, so they didn't have tires that were suitable for this kind of a track. They took over some of these older tires. Everybody's running them, and they're certainly getting terrific wear with them.
All right, thank you, Brock. And coming down to the pits where you are will be Randy LaJoy. He's low and slow as he makes the pit entrance, and this will now give the lead to number 29, Dave Dion, who has pitted and has a good chance now to race to the checker. So LaJoy is the last of the real contenders to get his pit work accomplished.
Maybe yes, maybe no, Steve. Dave Dion's got to get all the way around this 1-mile oval and pass LaJoy in the pits before he can actually claim the lead. And here he comes down the back straightaway, running hard. He probably knows that LaJoy is in the pits and is going to try to beat him. Here he comes. LaJoy out of the pits, accelerating. Got a 4-speed transmission in that car. Drag race down to turn 1. Here comes old Dave Dion down the front straightaway. Now it's a drag race, except that Dion's running probably another 120 miles an hour faster. But let's see what happens. There's LaJoy down in the pit apron, and there goes Dion by, officially the new leader.
Well, Brock, I don't think LaJoy really had much of a chance at cutting Dion off at the pass, but it sure was fun listening to you create all that excitement.
Well, we do what we can, Steve, and there it is. NASCAR North 200, Dave Dion in the lead.
Unless you've spent time in New England or Canada, you may not be too familiar with the NASCAR North Tour, but it's doing itself proud on the Monster Mile at Dover today. Earlier this year, these same drivers competed on their home territory at tracks with names like Thunder Road, Catamount, which are in Vermont. Before the tour started in 1978, these drivers used to compete mainly for the sheer fun of racing. And for financial reasons, they usually could run only on their hometown tracks. Then in 1978, NASCAR North was founded as a separate division of the sportsman class in NASCAR, specifically for the short tracks in the Northeast United States and Canada. The tour began with 24 races and a total purse of $165,000. And in just 5 years, it's grown to 33 races and a purse of over $650,000. So you can see how quickly it's caught on. Unlike their Grand National big brothers, these guys are used to 1/3 or 1/4 mile ovals with speeds between 70 and 90 miles an hour. But don't let that fool you. Remember that the Grand National drivers compete at tracks like Martinsville with average speeds of 94 miles an hour. After all, it takes more than speed to make a good racer. And as we're seeing today, the boys from up north are a bunch of skilled, competitive drivers. We're going back to Dover and Brock and Steve with more of the NASCAR North 200.
Well, you are right, Ed. These guys are a hard-a-driving bunch as you could hope to see. And this is our leader right now here in Dover, Delaware at the NASCAR North 200, car number 29, Dave Dion, followed by John Paul Cabana, who may have to come back in the pits yet again if he doesn't carry enough fuel. That's the 5A car. Randy LaJoie settled down into the 3rd spot.
One of the few full-time pros in the field, Dave Dion. Uh-oh, trouble in turn 3, and it's our man, John Paul Cabana. Maybe bounced it off the wall. It's hard to tell, Steve, but he sure looks like he didn't hurt the car too badly. He's down on the apron, rolling off the racetrack, no problems. But now, accelerating into the pits, I wonder whether or not that failure to change tires on his first pit stop caused that spin.
Cabana is going to take advantage here of the yellow flag that he himself has caused to get into the pits and try to sort out some of their problems. The old adage, won or lost in the pits, may be very appropriate before this day is over, especially for John Paul.
No question, Steve. This is the yellow flag that everybody wanted a while ago when they all had to stop under green. Now they're able to jump into the pits. The caution flag is out. The field is slowed down. They're going to be able to get in and out without having any major penalties in terms of time. And now we're going to find out who's handling and who isn't, because anybody that isn't working well on the racetrack is going to stop and make some adjustments. Here comes McCabe in the 0 car. He's had problems, and we suspected he had problems before. They're back in. They'll make tire changes and adjustments that they wouldn't otherwise do if the green flag was out. They just brave it out there.
Well, yellow flag or not, John Paul Cabana is spending far too much time in the pit area. First, they had that fueling problem. Cabana got away before they could change tires. These young crews are learning their lessons the hard way here at Dover.
Hard time for everybody during a caution because it changes the strategy of everybody in the race, and it makes scoring a lot harder. Let's not forget those poor folks up there in the stand with their pads and pencils trying to keep track of who's where in this event.
All right, John Paul Cabana puts it in forward gear, and he thunders out back to join the fray. We are still under yellow. Also down off the jack is Dick McCabe, car 0, going after Cabana and the rest of them.
Solid 2-time champion here in the NASCAR North Circuit. McCabe has had some chassis problems, and here's our pole sitter, Bob Dragon, in the pits. They're having a little conference with his crew. I'm sure that, and a tire change, I'm sure that he's making some chassis changes too. Car ran very well at the beginning of the race, as you recall, but it's looked kind of squirrely in the rest of the way. And maybe we haven't seen the last of John Paul Cabana in the pits either. There's his crew chief out there waving him down, probably going to try to get him back in here for some reason or another. Yes, says pit on the board, so he'll be back in. And Bobby Dragon gets ready to go. He's coming down off the jack stands with a fresh set of tires. And meantime, Steve Evans is down at the John Paul Cabana pit.
John Paul Cabana again gets the pit sign under this yellow flag. Just to bring what happened on the second pit here.
Well, one of my crew members put on the wrong tire, so we got to bring him back in right away before the green flag comes back out.
All right, so one of the crew members putting on the wrong tires. Remember, a lot of these crews are not used to this many pit stops, and certainly not this frenetic.
And more trouble with Dick McCabe. Now that they've begun to mess around with the chassis setting, it continues to get worse, probably better than being improved. So he's still got problems, and let's find out from Steve Evans what's going on there.
Talk to me just 1 second. 2 very quick pit stops for Dick McCabe.
Yeah. The first time that he came in, the left rear wheel was loose. For some reason it loosened up. We want to make sure they're all tight.
Right, Dick told us earlier that he changed the suspension completely since qualifying. Was that a mistake, or is it in your favor now, do you feel, the new suspension?
I'll tell you after the race is over.
Okay, we'll check with him for sure. And here's Bobby Dragon back in. Now they're changing the left side. He's got plenty of time, still under caution. They came in, changed the right side, probably went back out, made a lap, still under caution, now changed the right side. And here's 29, Dave Dion in again. He's going to make a change on the right side.
All right, Dion is the race leader, taking advantage of this yellow. The car is still up of Bobby Dragon, getting rubber, it would appear, on the left-hand side. The crew doesn't seem to be in any big hurry. As you can see, the cars in the background going fairly slowly under the yellow flag. And out goes Bobby Dragon, who had a tremendous early race, and he's got to get that pace back if he's to have a chance to win it. All right, here's the race leader, Dave Dion. Still working on the right-hand side of the car. Dion nervously sitting behind the wheel, waiting for approval from his crew chief to get out of there and get back in this race. We're not far away from a green flag. Brock is with Bobby Dragon's crew chief, Frank Woodward.
What you're going to do then is you're just going to have, you don't have to make another stop, you don't think?
No, we shouldn't have to make another stop. We should be able to make it now.
Okay, so he's going to stand on it all the way.
10-4, yeah, that's right. Good luck. Yeah, thank you.
Brock, John Paul Cabana, the 5A car, is in again, and maybe he even getting a little frazzled as he slides the car to a stop. And remember, it was Cabana here who started all this craziness, creating the first yellow flag of this NASCAR North 200, and here he comes up at turn 3, out of control. We could speculate that maybe the car's problems, the handling problems, could be attributed to not getting tires in that confusing first stop that 5A made. So John Paul Cabana has created a lot of excitement for us here in the pits. The wrong tires come off, the right ones go on for John Paul Cabana, and we'll go on with this NASCAR North 200 right after these words.
Color is yellow here at Dover Downs, Delaware, where the caution flag stays out during the running of the NASCAR North 200. I'm Brock Yates with Steve Evans, bringing you all the action as we get ready for green with Randy LaJoie heading up Dave Dion and John Paul Cabana as this race unfolds. 07, the red car of Randy LaJoie, heads him down toward probably what should be a restart here pretty quickly, Steve. Track is clean. We had a bad spin with old John Paul Cabana, but he managed to stay in the hunt. There it is, green flag out.
As we look at the field and our leader, Randy LaJoie, car number 07, bear in mind there are 2 cars between the first and second place runners. They are the 4th place car, Bobby Dragon, number 71, and Dick McCabe, the 5th place car, number 0.
It always happens during a caution. Everybody gets jumbled up a bit. The slow cars stay in the race and sometimes get near the lead. And when the green comes out, it takes a few laps for everybody to get back into their rightful positions. There's Dave Dion in car 29, the 3rd car in your picture, trying to get through the 2 slower cars and get up to Randy LaJoie where he can really contest him for the lead. And there's John Paul Cabana in that 5A, still in there.
Here's the order of the cars you see right now. It is LaJoie in first. Following him is Dragon, who's a lap down in 4th, and McCabe, who is a lap down in 5th. Dion behind McCabe. Got to get around them to chase down LaJoie. Dion has driven a very intelligent race today. He started from the 6th position, has moved up very carefully, inch by inch, now in 2nd place. But a lot of his success has occurred in the pit area. He has consistently had the best pit stops. In charge of his crew is his brother Paul, and Brock Yates is with Paul now.
What do you think your tire wear is going to be in the final stages of the race?
We've got enough to finish. We're okay.
Okay, so you think he can maintain this pace to the end?
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
I hope Paul is watching the action here because his brother Dave Dion is challenging for the lead. The 29 car coming low under 07 of Randy LaJoie, and Dave Dion is your new leader here in the NASCAR North 200. Dion, number 29, leading over Randy LaJoie 07, but I guarantee you LaJoie is not done with him yet.
Steve, it's interesting to note the difference in these automobiles. Actually, there are 2 different types of cars running in this race. There are the big engine cars. They carry 358 cubic inch engines, and they weigh 3,150 pounds. There are some other cars in the race that are smaller and lighter. They weigh 2,900 pounds and carrying 311 cubic inch engines. Actually, though, among the leaders today, the big engine, heavier cars seem to be dominating.
Well, that's certainly true of Dave Dion, number 29, his car of the big inch formula, and he is about to put a lap on number 5A, John Paul Cabana, who had so many problems in the pit area. The last thing Dion wants to do here right now, though, is get in a hurry and get in trouble just trying to lap the slower car. He's got to maintain his cool, Brock.
No question about it, Steve. He's run a very steady race, and believe it or not, there's been very little fender banging in this event. A lot of people came out here expecting to see these guys all over the racetrack, bouncing off each other, and nothing of that nature at all.
With Cabana holding up Dion's progress, it's allowed Bobby Dragon to move up and try to unlap himself. Dragon directly behind Dion right now. Dion still trying to get around Cabana.
But Dragon has definitely sorted out whatever handling problems he had earlier in the race during that yellow flag and that pit stop and the chassis adjustments. So Bobby Dragon could be a factor, even though he's a lap down.
Well, not if that guy in number 29 has anything to say about it. Dave Dion may be driving the finest race of his career.
He's doing a fine job. And you wonder about Randy LaJoie back there in the 4th place. He was with the leaders all day, but now the edge seems to have come off the car a little bit. He just doesn't seem to be running quite as quickly as he was, and I wonder if maybe he's got some handling problems or maybe the engine's gone sour on him.
I don't believe this is Randy LaJoie's usual ride, is it, Rod?
No, he's in a different car, and he's not a regular on this circuit. Uh-oh. Bounced off the old wall coming down the front straightaway.
Boy, you called that one. He was having handling problems, all right. Randy LaJoie is apparently all right, as he seems to have full control of the automobile. Takes it down off the track and into the grass, hoping to not cause a yellow flag so that this action can continue at full speed.
Here's the replay. I wonder whether or not the car was giving him problems that just kind of pushed him up into the wall. It looks like maybe he had some steering troubles or maybe a tire went down on him on the right front. But he's definitely all right, climbing out of the car. Not a major incident, fortunately, but a lot of guys have been getting very close to that 4th turn wall, and I had to wonder if somebody wasn't going to brush it sooner or later.
Well, talk about your Chargers. Bobby Dragon, number 71, has just unlapped himself. He has passed Dave Dion. The number 71 car is now on the same. Bobby Dragon in trouble. He center punches the wall. The car disintegrates in the front half.
Bad crash. Had to hit that thing at 140, 150 miles an hour, and I don't care how strong these cars are. I'm worried about Bobby Dragon. That was a bad hit.
Well, normally these cars will hit the wall a glancing blow. Not so Bobby Dragon. He hit it almost head-on, Brock, as hard as I think I've ever seen. These are very sturdy machines built to the NASCAR North rules, and he's okay. He is out of the car. Unbelievable.
What a piece of luck. That's the kind of a crash that it could really hurt somebody, but in this particular case, the laws of physics played in his hands. He's okay.
This is Steve Evans with Brock Yates back again in Dover, Delaware for the closing laps of the NASCAR North 200. We're under the yellow flag caused by a spectacular but non-injury accident when Bobby Dragon car number 71 collided with the crash wall. The green flag is again out, and it is Dave Dion, car number 29, with the lead.
Dion seems to get stronger as this race progresses. He's had some problems in and out of the pits a couple of times, but always there and now strong. And look at this, car number 0, Dick McCabe, 2-time NASCAR North champion. Problems handling early in the race, but now seems to have things sorted out, and he could be a major factor as this race winds down, Steve.
That was McCabe passing John Paul Cabana, so they are running 1, 2, 3 right now. Dion in the orange car, the green car of McCabe, and the blue and white machine from Canada of Cabana.
Interesting contrast between these two guys, Steve. Dave Dion is a full-time pro, but Dick McCabe only races on the weekends. He actually has a bait wholesaling operation, if you can believe it.
Wait a minute, bait? We're talking fishing bait?
Absolutely, fishing bait. It's a big business in the Northeast. This is bait for professional fishermen, the commercial guys. And his operation in Kennebunkport, Maine is supposed to be the biggest in New England.
But wouldn't you have to give the experience edge still to McCabe here?
Well, it's hard to say. McCabe, as we said earlier, has won this operation, the NASCAR North Tour, twice. And Dion has never won it, but boy, Dion is running awful strong here today.
Well, one of the contributing factors to making this such a great duel is there are now 2 grooves on the racetrack. You don't have to be down low in the turns to still get around successfully. And Dion, Brock, appears to be very comfortable in that outside line.
Yeah, he's running higher and higher. As the racetrack's gotten a cushion of rubber on it, it's been easier to run up there, but still, Dick McCabe stays down low and is doing very well down there.
He may be blocking here a little bit, not letting Dion get down low. The two just seesaw back and forth.
Well, Dick McCabe's going to make Dion drive around the outside of him. There's no question about that. And, of course, that is the long way around. And if McCabe can hold that line and keep Dave Dion outside, there's a good chance that he can finally scratch out a little bit of a lead.
It looks like the hood is flapping a bit on the 29 car.
I noticed that. And I wonder whether or not we're just noticing it or whether or not it's getting worse as the race progresses. It's probably a light sheet steel or aluminum hood held down by pins, so there's a chance that it wouldn't break loose, but you got to wonder whether or not the officials are going to spot it and maybe give him a black flag. There, now he finally edged out in front of Dick McCabe and has gotten himself about 2 car lengths as they go down into turn 1 and 2. And I would venture to say that he's going to try to stay kind of halfway in the middle. So he's just going to nip Dick McCabe as he might try to duck down inside him as they go through these corners. But it seems to me that Dion's car handles better and it's got a little bit more power. Now let's go to the pits where Steve Evans has collared Bobby Dragon as he comes away from that bad crash.
Bobby Dragon just exiting the emergency room here. Bobby, you appear to be okay.
Yeah, I'm okay.
You know, it'd be almost impossible to hit the wall any harder than you did.
Well, I guess you're right about that. I was not sure if it was going to stay in the track or going over it or through it or what, but came out of it all right, I guess.
Can you describe to us what happened, what caused the spin?
Well, as I recall, we were coming up on a lap car or slower car, and he was kind of high on the track, and I had to back out of it for a second, and when I did, the back end just broke loose, and there was just no bringing it back at that point. She came around on me, and I brought it back around, but it just went, you know, straight into the wall.
And you were trying desperately to unlap yourself as well.
Yeah, that's really the whole story. Probably if I hadn't had to run quite so hard, probably it wouldn't have happened maybe.
Okay, he's okay. He'll be back, Bobby Dragon.
He sure will be back, Steve. And the next time somebody tells you that they don't wear seat belts because they don't think they work, we ought to show them this footage of this crash, because it is a wonderful lesson in the benefits of seat belts. He was tied into that race car with a shoulder harness and seat belts, and there's no question that they saved his life. And Dave Dion continues to show real muscle in the lead. There he goes, way high through turns 1 and 2 to lap a slower car, running very strong. And provided that that hood stays on and provided he doesn't encounter some kind of mechanical problems, Dave Dion is taking command of this race with more authority really than anybody else has so far. He's in a very strong position at this point.
Brock, this is the furthest south that this type of racing has ever been seen, and I have a feeling they've cultivated quite a few fans. 2 laps to go. The starter indicates there are just 2 more laps in this NASCAR North 200.
You got to know some guys down there in Dion's pit are crossing their fingers that that hood's going to stay loose, and you sure expect that Dick McCabe and John Paul Cabana's crew and they themselves are hoping maybe it's going to fly out onto the street somewhere.
Well, McCabe and Cabana putting on a race of their own for second place. There's quite a difference in prize money there, so they're still racing for the dollars.
Yeah, and they're racing for pride, too. This is a big event. There's the white flag. 1 more lap. 1 mile to go for Dave Dion, and he's got the first NASCAR North Dover 200 in his pocket.
And I'm sure down in the pit area, his crew has their fingers crossed, just hoping that hood stays on the car and that all stays together, because he's within just a few seconds of winning one of the biggest races in his professional career.
I would say certainly the biggest race of Dave Dion's career, and who's to know where it'll carry him. Down off turn 4, staying away from that wall. There's the checker.
And it's time to slap hands and get a little crazy in the Dion pits, as his brothers Paul and Roger deserve a lot of credit for this win today. It was their quick pit work that helped make it possible. We'll be back to talk to the happy winner, Dave Dion, right after these words.